Hare Krishna, Krishna Janmastami ki jai. Ma Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Budale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharini Praseshanibari Paschatare Satar. Since I've been reading the Brihad Bhagavatamrta, I'm going to continue reading that, but I thought I would share it instead of just reading by myself. This is part 2, chapter 2, starting with verse 180. His two beautiful lotus feet, therefore, embody the concentrated essence of happiness. Those who realize them through pure devotion surely attain the intense bliss. Commentary. The happiness of the devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is much greater than the happiness of persons who meditate on impersonal Brahman. These two lotus feet of the Personality of Godhead are Srimat, endowed with all splendor, as the sage Parasara explains in the Vishnu Purana 12253. Ekadesha Chitasagye Jyoitishna Vistarini Yata Parasya Brahmana Shakti Tatedam Akilam Jagat. Just as the light of a fire situated in one place spreads in every direction, the energies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Para Brahman, spread all over the universe. As Sri Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Brahmano hi pratishtaham amritasya vaivasya cha. I am the foundation of Brahman, the immortal and infallible. The Supreme Lord's lotus feet are pure spirit, perfect in eternity, knowledge and bliss. Their effulgence is like the combined radiance of the sun and moon, and the worshippers of these feet naturally relish intense pleasure. In contrast, the pleasure of realizing the Brahman feature of the Supreme is minuscule. The jivas are of the nature of this Brahman, and even though the individual effulgence of each of them is small, because the jivas are found everywhere, their combined effulgence pervades the entire universe. The pleasure of realizing Brahman and the jiva is not material, but is inferior to the bliss gained by realizing the lotus feet of the Lord. The individual jiva may be compared to solar and lunar rays. The atomic quanta of light shining forth from the sun and moon are expansions of the sun and moon and non-different from them. But although the rays of the sun and moon have many sun-like and moon-like qualities, such as brilliance, the rays of each bear but a small part of the solar and lunar power. All this notwithstanding, when we compare both Brahman and the jivas with the material cosmos and the material cosmos, we find that matter is not Satchit Ananda. And so, properly speaking, matter is not an amsa, non-different part of the Para-Brahman, but is one of his energies, Shakti. Next verse. The 2 feet of Sri Krishna are considered like a piece of sugar because they are joyful and are a source of all joy. Brahman, however, is only joyful. Commentary. Lord Krishna's lotus feet are Sukha Rupa, the essence of joy itself, and Sukha Adhara, the object of love in which his devotees taste countless varieties of joy. His feet are like a sugar lump, which is in essence nothing but sweetness, but is also a particular object that supplies sweetness. Brahman, in its essence, is bliss, but Brahman cannot be considered a source of bliss because that would involve duality a difference between Brahman and its bliss. By definition, after all, Brahman is supposed to be free of all duality. The concept of the personality of Godhead, however, is not limited in that way. He is a fathomless reservoir of wonders, deeper than millions of oceans. Just as various rivers enter into an ocean, many contrary qualities like oneness and duality enter and mingle within him. Next verse. If the identity of the jiva, the individual soul, were the same as that of the Supreme Brahman, then the jiva would be full embodiment of eternity, knowledge, and bliss. He would be the personality of Godhead himself. Comment. Basic philosophers, some philosophers think that God is nothing else than the impersonal Brahman, which pervades the creation with consciousness, like the moon illuminating the sky with its rays. These philosophers may even take support for their idea from Srimad Bhagavatam 1:11, where it says, Brahmeti Paramatmeti Bhagavaniti Shabdyate. The same one absolute is called Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. But this impersonal view does not allow the conscious self, the jiva, any real individual existence apart from Brahman. And as the Bhakti Shastras explain in the text 182 to 188, not much happiness can be derived from the so-called liberation of identifying the jiva with Brahman, the Supreme. But the jivas are recognized as integral parts of the personality. They are like the network of light that shines forth from the dense mass of light called the sun. Commentary. Parasara and many saintly authorities are of the opinion that the jiva are small, partial expansions of the Supreme Person. He is a guna tejas, the dense source of light, and they are small particles of light spreading out from him. Because there are many jivas, they pervade the entire universe, just as the rays from the sun provide light and heat for the entire universe, even though the sun globe is in one place, far away. Next verse. In relation to the Supreme Lord, the eternally existing jiva are distinct, like the rays of the sun, the sparks of a fire, or the waves of an ocean. Commentary. Someone may propose that the jivas appear distinct at many by the power of illusion, an illusion dispelled when liberation is achieved and only pure non-difference remains. This idea is refuted in this verse and the next. Those who acknowledge that all the Lord's energies are real look upon the jivas not as illusions created by Maya, but as separated expansions of the Supreme Brahman, each with its own autonomous existence. Next verse. By the Supreme Lord's eternally existing potency, called Mahayoga, who is an aspect of his spiritual splendor, these jivas always stand separate from him. Commentary. If the illusory Maya does not create duality, then from where does it arise? It arises from the Supreme Lord's personal energy, who has always been acting on his behalf. But by that energy, the jivas have their separate existence, not as an illusion, but in fact. Furthermore, since the power that maintains the separate identities of the jivas is an eternal energy of the Lord, the jivas themselves are also eternal. That energy is called Mahayoga or Yoga Maya, meaning that she can take the impossible possible, as she does when she manifests a distinction between the whole and the parts and individual supreme. She is an expansion of the Lord's internal energy, and thus she is not a creator of unreality. Sri Krishna describes her in the Bhagavad Gita, Naham prakasa sarvasya yogamaya samavrita. I am not manifest to everyone, for I am covered by my yogamaya. Tasmad abhinaste bina api satam mata ukto satyam api prayo vedas tishted ato hisa. Therefore, saintly authorities consider the jivas both different and non-different from the Supreme. As a rule, even when the jivas are liberated, the difference endures. Commentary. The jivas are non-different from Brahman in that they share with him the nature of being pure spirit, eternal, conscious, and blissful, simultaneously being parts of him and having other distinct qualities. They are different from him. As illustrated in the example given in text 184, the parts of the whole, such as the rays of the sun, sparks of a fire, and the waves of an ocean, are non-different from the whole because they partake of the qualities of the whole. Yet they differ from the whole by virtue of being separate, many, and diminutive. The parts and the whole always remain separate. Thus even Sri Shankaracharya has said, Mukta api lilaya vigraham kritva bhagavantam bhajanti. Even the liberated accept new bodies as their pastime to worship the Supreme Lord. This idea is consistent with statements of the Mahapuranas and other scriptures. For example, the Bhagavatam says, Srimad Bhagavatam, 6 Canto 14, number 5, Muktanam api siddhanam narayana parayana sudurlabha prashantatma kotishvapi mahamune. O great sage, among many millions who are liberated and perfect in knowledge of liberation, one may be a devotee of Lord Narayan or Krishna. Such devotees who are fully peaceful are extremely rare. If upon attaining liberation a person were to merge as one with Brahman, who would remain to take on a new body and pastimes? Or what liberated soul would engage in bhakti as a devotee of Lord Narayan? Having no individual existence separate from Brahman would disallow the liberated Atma from doing any of these things. Nor can we explain away the cited statements by saying that they refer to persons who are Jivan Mukta, who have earned liberation but are still living in material bodies. Such persons already have bodies and therefore need not assume bodies for pastime. This 6th canto verse cited above states that some liberated souls worship Narayan. The Kartik Mahatmya section of the Padma Purana tells of the advanced stage in a human body who merged into the Supreme Lord and then later obtained a form similar in appearance to that of Lord Narayan. Similarly, in a discourse about fasting on Nrsimha Chaturdasi, the Brihad Nrsimha Purana relates how a fallen Brahmana and a prostitute merged into the Supreme and then again took birth as Prahlad and his wife. Many histories like this also serve as evidence that the jiva continues its individual existence after liberation. Only as a concession does the current verse use the word prayaha as a general rule to indicate that in certain cases the Lord may by his sweet will allow someone to attain sayuja or nirvana, the nirvana of entering his body, meaning Krishna. text 187. The original forms of the jiva are made of eternity, knowledge, and bliss, but by beginning this illusion of Krishna's Maya, the jivas forget their true identities and wander deluded in the cycle of birth and death. Commentary. This verse and the next answer the following doubt: if the separate individual existence of the jiva continues even in the liberated state, what do the many lifetimes of effort for liberation actually accomplish? As explained here, the material energy of the personality of Godhead, Krishna, creates for the jivas an illusion that for all practical purposes is without beginning. An illusion that makes them forget their essential identity as parts of Him and begin wandering in material life. If this is deluded, aimless life that is unreal, because in truth the jivas do not belong to the world of birth and death. 188. When a jiva is liberated by knowledge of his true self, Maya ceases to act on him, and his wandering comes to an end. He then perceives himself to be full of bliss as a small portion of the Supreme. Commentary. The jiva is liberated when he attains knowledge of his real identity as a pure spirit. The spiritual self-knowledge one gains in the preliminary stage gives only partial spiritual happiness, but that stage of liberation can then lead to the full self-realization of Krishna consciousness, in which one finds full ecstasy. Devotees of the personality of Godhead are superior to persons who are merely liberated, for though the devotees and the merely liberated share the same spiritual identity as jivas, the devotees enjoy the special happiness of bhakti in their worship of the Lord, in their realization of His lotus feet. 189. In all spheres of activity, the results one's achieve match the discipline one has practiced. Thus, in the liberation attained by knowledge of one's own self, the result is meager. Commentary. To clarify their point, the Bhakti Shastras here introduce the general principle that results come according to the means one employs. This rule applies to both ordinary and transcendental life. Scissors cannot do the job of an axe, nor can methods aimed merely at realizing the jiva soul yield the same result as methods for realizing the Supreme Soul. The sadhana of acquiring knowledge of the jiva soul, who is but a small part of Brahman, gives but a partial, insignificant result in liberation, because the sadhana itself is only partial. 190. Suffering the torments of material existence and lacking the taste for loving exchanges in true spiritual life, seekers of liberation profusely glorify liberation, just as persons aspiring for heaven praise heaven. Commentary. Why do some transcendentalists describe the happiness of liberation as supreme? Because they are frustrated with material life and they misunderstand real spiritual life. Their minds are disturbed by the pains of birth, death, and other torments of this world, and so the non-devotees develop the desire to attain liberation. They glorify liberation in many ways, but their words do nothing to make liberation more than it actually is. The example given here is that persons unaware of the faults of Swarga, heaven, and therefore eager to achieve it, they praise heaven profusely, citing words like this: the happiness of the residents of heaven come just as desired, stays untainted by misery, and not overtaken by misery at the end. From the Vidarta of Gadadhar Bhatt. Since enjoyers are unmindful of the residents of Swargaloka quarrel, they fear losing their position, and that their enjoyment of heaven is temporary and tarnished by various types of discomfort. 191. But only in devotional service does the highest degree of happiness naturally occur. That happiness is the right reward for those who practice serving the Supreme Lord's all blissful lotus feet. 192. The highest degree indicates greatness that has reached its ultimate peak, but in fact, that endless happiness has no limit. Commentary. The glories of devotional service are difficult to describe without straining the capacity of words. This phrase, parakashta, highest degree, implies no higher degree exists, but the happiness of pure devotional service never reaches its final peak. It keeps on increasing forever. Calling it parakashta of happiness is only a poetic attempt to do justice with words available in human language. 193. That happiness increases endlessly. It is limitless and supremely great. In contrast, the happiness of Brahman found in liberation never increases because it's limited. Commentary. The Bhakti Shastris here explicitly confirm that the happiness of bhakti increases constantly, and to dispel any misconception of this increase may eventually come to an end. They further qualify it as ananta, endless. In every moment, the pure devotee experiences bhakti ras as newer and newer, sweeter and sweeter, and more intense. Because Brahman cannot develop or transform in any way, the happiness of realizing Brahman is static. When impersonalists call their Brahma Sukha the parakashta of happiness, they mean it has virtually reached a peak beyond which it can progress no further. Next, Supreme Lord is also the Supreme Soul and the Supreme Brahman. That these three are one leaves no chance of Sayuja difference in the Supreme. Commentary. The Vedas are accepted as perfect authority both by impersonalists and by devotees of the Supreme Lord, and when the Vedic Upanishads declare that there is no duality in the Supreme, the impersonalist and the personalist understand this in opposite ways. For the Advaitavadi impersonalist, the oneness of Brahman means that all form and variety are illusion. For the Vaishnavas, however, the Supreme, although one, is full of variety. How this can be so, the Vedas now begin to explain to Gopakumar, starting with 2 verses discussing the absence of difference in the Supreme. Differences can be analyzed as being of 2 kinds, sajatiya and vijatiya. Similar things like 2 men will differ as individuals. This is called sajatiya bheda, the difference between members of the same category. Dissimilar things like man and a cow differ by vijatiya bheda, the difference between members of separate categories. Now, because the jivas are manifestations of Brahman, and because in earlier verses we heard that the jivas are always distinct as individuals, someone may object that we find here ourselves facing a Brahman in which there are sajatiya differences. That is, Brahman now seems to consist of members of one category who differ from another. But this makes no sense because it would contradict the very nature of Brahman, which by definition of the authoritative Upanishads is ekam, absolutely one, and advayam, allowing no differences whatsoever. Point taken, but how, as expressed by the formula ekam advayam, the Supreme is free of all dualities, sajatiya and vijatiya, is shown in a different way in this verse and the next. Despite being surrounded by a world full of apparent variety, the impersonalists construe ekam advayam in its most strictly literal sense, saying that there are absolutely no dualities at all. But what the Vedas actually mean by these words fits more sensibly with our common experience. How Brahman is ekam, that is free from sajatiya differences, is best understood in the following way. the impersonalist absolute, Parabrahma, the indwelling controller of the jivas, Paramatma, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Parameshvara, are one absolute truth. There's no difference between the three. When the Supreme Absolute Truth as a Personality of Godhead further expands into countless forms like guna avatars, lila avatars, and so on, these avatars may seem different from one another, but in reality they are one and the same person. In all his plenary expansions, he never becomes any less than his full self. In spite of external appearances, thus any attempt to analyze the plenary expansions of God as different members of one category is doomed to fail. Brahman does, however, have expansions of his energy in the form of infinite living beings, as discussed in the next verse. The jivas always have their own identities, different from that of the Supreme, but they are parts of the Supreme and cannot exist separate from him. This rules out the difference called vijatiya. Commentary. This verse establishes the actual way that Brahman is advayam, free from all dualities. The jivas, it is true, belong to categories other than Brahman, such as the category of things that have finite size. In that sense, they are different from Brahman. But in other respects, they are non-different from him. They are expansions of the same creative living force in which Brahman's own supreme personality consists, and they are his integral parts, naturally sharing many of his qualities. Thus, although they are individuals, and eternally so, they are not entirely separate from the absolute Brahman, the Supreme Person. Next verse. We fully approve of this philosophical doctrine called Bheda Bheda. Indeed, when it is presented with logical argument, everything about it is certain and irrefutable. Commentary. The scriptures dedicated solely to propounding pure devotional service agree with the contest Bheda Bheda and with its logical supporting arguments. With the help of this philosophical framework for understanding the identities, relationships, and purposes of all beings that exist, the Bhakti Shastras faultlessly explain the path of devotional service and reconcile all possible doubts and contradictions, both spoken and unspoken. Thus, the presentation of Bhakti Shastras is definite dhruvam. The impersonalists say that since the jivas come into being from Brahman and are again absorbed back into Brahman, they are altogether non-different from Brahman. But even according to this theory, the happiness of impersonal liberation is meager because that liberation rules out perception of the totality of Brahman. Waves do not arise in one part of the ocean and dissolve in another. On the ocean shore, waves do arise in one part of the ocean and dissolve in another on the ocean shore. And since the waves of the ocean consist of the same water, they are non-different. Yet even though the waves, when they dissolve, again become one with the ocean, in the sense that their separate existence is no longer visible, the waves don't have the same depth as the ocean, nor can they generate precious jewels. So the waves of the ocean are all different. Applying the metaphor of the ocean and the waves, one formulation of impersonalist theory would be that when jivas attain liberation by merging back in the individual portions of Brahman from which they originated, they again become one with Brahman. But the Bhakti Shastris respond that because the jivas are by their very nature separate and finite, they cannot become the undivided Supreme and enjoy all his unlimited bliss. On the contrary, even according to the theory, they continue to exist separately in liberation, retaining their individuality even in union with the Supreme. This implies that although they are non-different from Brahman, they are also in some ways different from him. The scriptures accordingly describe that sometimes by the Supreme Lord's special mercy, a liberated soul merged in oneness with Brahman becomes eager for the joys of bhakti and once again assumes his distinct identity so that he can have a spiritual body with which to serve the Lord. Shankaracharya Pad has said, "My Lord, when all difference is gone, I am still yours, although you are mine, not mine. I am yours and you are not mine. A wave belongs to the ocean, but surely the ocean does not belong to the wave." This statement by Acharya Shankara, expressing the basic idea of the Veda philosophy, is very much to the point. Even after the jiva's illusory difference from the Lord is destroyed, his real difference of belonging to the Lord remains. If this were not so, there would be no meaning to the word Nata Tavaham. My Lord, I am yours. The separate river waters cannot literally become the ocean, which has qualities the rivers do not possess, like the ability to produce gems. The rivers are only said to become one with the ocean because after they flow into the ocean, their separate existence is no longer visible. But in fact, the oneness is unreal. In the same way, liberation is impersonally conceived as unreal, for it implies that liberation equals non-existence, like that of an extinguished flame. Again, if the liberated self has become completely one with the Brahman, it has no scope for happiness, since the liberated self is not supposed to keep the mind and other faculties of individual consciousness with which happiness could be tasted. Even when liberated, the soul remains individual. Thus, when the standard scriptures consider the four kinds of annihilation, the constant degradation of matter, the partial destruction of the universe at the end of Brahma's day, the total destruction at the end of Brahma's life, and liberation of individual souls, the scriptures distinguish between liberation and total annihilation. Quite a lot of these purports are written also by Sanatana Goswami, but Gopi Pranadhana Prabhu is summarizing them because some of them are very, very long and too much for us. But he wrote the book and commented also. We scriptures are always accepted as authoritative. Our words and the words and behavior of great souls are standard evidence in all circumstances. Guru Shastra Sadhu. In the opinion of some transcendentalists, the absolute truth, eternally one without a second, becomes differentiated only by the superficial covering of illusion, which makes the one absolute falsely appear in many jivas. And when by knowledge of reality that false appearance is stripped away, only the absolute truth remains, manifest alone. Thus, when illusion is dispelled, the illusion that arises when circumstantial designations make the jiva seem to separately exist, one attains mukti, in which one perceives, as before, the intense bliss of one's true identity as Brahman. And so, by this reasoning, Brahman realization does constitute substantial happiness. In mukti, furthermore, according to this view, there is no longer attraction to the false ego, even in its most subtle forms. Indeed, even the very person who once relished false happiness from the false ego no longer exists. Thus, in mukti, real happiness is known, the happiness that comes from realizing the true identity of the self. The proponents of devotion to the personality of Godhead may believe that when the personal identity of Bhagavan, the embodiment of Satchidananda, is constantly revealed, they can enjoy the most sublime and concentrated bliss, greater than liberation. So they claim that bhakti is greater than mukti. But these beliefs are incorrect. The bliss of Brahman is perfect. Such are the views of impersonalists. And in text 197 and 204, the Bhakti Shastras refute these views. Srimad Bhagavatam and other Bhakti Shastras offer many statements In refutation of the impersonalist outlook, here are but a few examples. Atmarama Jamunayo Nirganta Apyurukame Kurvantya Hoitakim Bhaktim Itam Bhuta Gunahari. Even those who are self-satisfied and unattracted by external material desires are attracted to the loving service of Sri Krishna, whose qualities are transcendental and whose activities are wonderful. Hari, the personality of Godhead, is called Krishna because he has such transcendental, attractive features. Now if you go to the Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Lord Chaitanya is in Benares and speaking to Sanatana Goswami towards the end, then he explains this particular verse in 64 different ways, or 61 different ways, which is inconceivable. Sarvabhauma explained it in 9 ways, and that was more than any other human being could do. Then Lord Chaitanya explained it in 21 ways, but then later he explained it again in different 60 ways. So it's and every explanation leads to this bhakti, service to Krishna. Another verse in the first canto, chapter 7. Devanam guna linganam anushravika karmanam sattva evaika manaso vritti swabhavika tuya animita bhagavati bhakti siddhar garishisi. The senses, being symbolic representatives of the demigods, are naturally inclined to work as directed by the Vedic injunctions. And as the senses represent the demigods, so the mind represents the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The mind's natural duty is to serve. When that service spirit is engaged in the service of the Personality of Godhead without any motive, that devotional service is far better than the salvation. Narayana parasarve nakutascha bhivyati svarga pavarga narakesh vapi tuyarta darshana. Devotees solely engaged in devotional service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Narayan, never fear any condition of life. For them, the heavenly planets, liberation, and the hellish planets are all the same, for such devotees are interested only in the service of the Lord. Bhagavatam 6:17-28. Durva gamatma tattva nirgamaya tat tavatatanos charita maham ritabdi parivarta parishamana na parilashanti kechid apavargam apishvarate charana saroja hamsa kula sangha rishista griha. My Lord, some fortunate souls have gotten relief from the fatigue of material life by diving into the vast ocean of your pastimes, which you enact when you manifest your personal forms to make known the unfathomable science of the self. These rare souls, indifferent even to liberation, renounce the happiness of home and family because of association with devotees who are like flocks of swans enjoying at the lotus of your feet. Another one. Mahatam madhudvit sevanurakta manasam abhivopi palgu. Even liberation is insignificant for those whose minds are attracted to the loving service of Madhuvit. 5th Canto, Chapter 14, Text 44. These authoritative statements of the Bhagavatam and other Bhakti Shastras are supported by thousands and thousands of recorded statements by great saintly persons. Vaishnavas like Narada, Prahlad, and Hanuman have expressed themselves unequivocally on this topic. If, for example, Sri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Rupa Goswami refers to this well-known statement by Hanuman. Bhava Bandha Chide Tasmai Sprihayami Na Muktaye Bhavan Prabhur Aham Dasa Iti Yatra Vilupyate. Even though liberation destroys the bondage of material existence, I have no desire for liberation, which I would forget that you are the master and I am your servant. Recent authorities have spoken in the same way. For example, the all-knowing commentator of the important Shrutis, Paramahansa Shankaracharya Bhagavatamrta, has said, Mukta api lilaya vigraham kvitva bhagavantam bhajanti. For pastimes, even those who are liberated accept new bodies to worship the Supreme Lord. This accords with the Vedanta Sutra 132, which says that Brahman is approached for shelter by persons who are liberated. Mukto paspritya vya padeshat. Shri Sukadev, 4 Kumaras, and others like them were attracted to narrations of the pastimes of the personality of Godhead, and Prahlad, Hanuman, and others refused to accept moksha even from the Lord himself. This evidence from Scripture and the words and behavior of saintly persons are authoritative in all circumstances and at all times. It should never be dismissed as what in Vedic terms is called artavad, mere sectarian verve. The statements of the Bhakti Shastras like Srimad Bhagavatam and the great devotees like Narada, Hanuman, and Sukadev need no authentication from any other evidence. They are always perfect. Next verse. And many historical accounts support these statements we have made. To presume, therefore, that our words are merely overstated praise is unreasonable. Commentary. That devotional service is vastly superior to mere liberation is not an idea which one should dismiss as artavad, exaggeration, for it has been factually established by ancient histories recorded in the Puranas and other scriptures. The consensus indicated by thousands of accounts from various sources is too strong to disregard. And one such account concerns a Brahmin resident of Dwarka, whose sons all died at birth. Unaware of the fact that they had been taken away by Lord Mahavishnu to the abode of liberation, the Brahmana complained to Krishna and Arjuna. Arjuna offered to protect the born son next, but in spite of Arjuna's utmost efforts, that infant mysteriously disappeared soon after birth. Bitterly reviled by the Brahmin for this failure, Arjuna was about to kill himself in shame, but Krishna brought him to the abode of liberation, where they found the sons, whom they had then brought back to Dwarka, the abode of devotional service. In another incident, the 3 sages Ekata, Dvita, and Trita went to Sweta Dweep and made a great effort to achieve darshan of the personality of Godhead. But even though they were fixed in a level of Brahman realization virtually equal to that of the 4 Kumaras, they were unable to see the Lord. They were qualified for mukti but not bhakti. 4th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam describes how Lord Vishnu visited King Prithu, the incarnation of the Lord's power of rulership. When the Lord urged the king to choose the best benediction, Prithu Maharaj extolled the Lord with excellent prayers and said, Tan maya yada janai shakandito yad anyad ashasta ritatmano buddha yata chared bala hitam pita swayam tata tvam evarhasi na samihitam. My Lord, due to your illusory energy, all living beings in this material world have forgotten their real constitutional positions, and out of ignorance they always desire the material happiness of society, friendship, and love. Therefore, please do not ask me to take some material benefit from you. Rather, as a father, not waiting for the son's demand, does everything for the benefit of the son, please bestow upon me whatever you think best. The narration continues. Ityad rajena nutak savishvajik tamaha rajan mahi bhaktirastute jistye jishitir mahite kritaryaya mayam madiyam tadati sma dusyajam. After hearing Prithu Maharaj's prayer, the Lord, the seer of the universe, said to the king, My dear king, may you always be blessed by engaging in my devotional service. As you yourself very intelligently expressed, only by such purity of purpose can one cross over the insurmountable of energy of Maya. That's from the 4th Canto, chapter 20, text 30 to 32. I'm going to stop there for now. This, of course, is completely transcendental and not easy to take in and remember, but these are arguments we've always heard. We've all, been too much exposed to these Maya-body arguments, and fear of personality, fear of interaction, fear of the relationships, because we don't understand our real position. Even if we know theoretically I'm not this body, we act to every pain and pleasure of the body. We always have to deal with it, either to reject it or accept it. But if we come to the state of constant absorbed in the form of Krishna and serving the Supreme Personality of Godhead for His pleasure, then we can really transcend. So we'll stop there. It's Janmastami Day, the appearance day of Krishna. Many, many interesting factors, because it's the 8th day of the rising moon, but it said it was a full moon, because the moon just became full in ecstasy at Krishna's appearing, and the whole universe became full in ecstasy. So many things happened right at that moment. The demons became more in anxiety, but this appearance is always there. Krishna's everywhere, and He appears whenever He wants to, for the pleasure of His devotees. So thank you all, whoever is listening. I don't know if you're listening or you just checked it out, but we get wishes, happy Janmastami. It should always be happy. It doesn't have to be Janmastami, it doesn't have to be your own birthday. We should be beyond happiness, and we should be well-wishers of everyone. This was mentioned earlier in the Krishna book on Brahman. When you're spreading Krishna consciousness, you're working for the welfare of everyone. It's the only way you can do that. We can't feed everyone. We can't, give everyone a nice house. We can feed a few people. We can give a few nice houses if we have money. But when we spread Krishna consciousness, it's pleasing to Krishna, and it affects everybody. Although not instantly, like we would like to see. But if enough people are spreading Krishna consciousness, it affects more and more people. And we see in the world, like even in India, there's so much water shortage. And they're trying all kinds of material means, which are failing, to get more water. And it seems like they're forgetting that the rains come from yajna. So we need to spread more yajna and, get more and more people to take up this Sankirtan yajna, the only yajna that's really effective in this kind of day and age. So our program here is supposed to be starting. I'll try to get back another time. It's very enlivening for me to read with the audience. We have I know enough of them to know they're coming from many different countries. And we have the Krishna book, we have Nectar Devotion, the 2 super sublime books about Krishna. So everybody please read those today. We'll be back with that later. Haribol.